truthful witness. And the man was the biggest liar that was at court that morning. But you're of the Constitution to clarify your business. It is an offense to use insulting language to the police. If you use insulting language, some man here, some day last week, I think I heard it, some man called the policeman, you damn fool. He might have been a fool, I don't know. But the fact remains that you cannot use insulting language to a policeman. So don't misunderstand. I say you can't curse the police, you can't curse them. As a matter of fact, you can't even obstruct the police when he's carrying his duties. If the policeman is reporting your brother and you go saying you're police best, you look for work and leave good people, that is obstructing. You're making his job a bit more difficult than it would have been. And for that, you then can be charged for obstructing the police.
I don't want to take too far off, but there's one other question. Does that apply to other law enforcement agency personnel, or is only the police?
There's specific laws about the police. When I used to practice law, I used to laugh and say that if a man says, "There's not the headline," who's the headline person today? There's just a little joke about that, it's not the headline. I used to laugh and say that if the Chief Justice was driving out his car through the courtyard, and the man said, "Look that old ugly Chief Justice. You can't do a thing." And if the ugliest policeman you see old ugly policeman, that you could be charged for calling the old ugly policeman. When I was young, and I thought it would have been a good thing one of these days if somebody was charged with it to go to court and argue. It was not insulting language at all. It was just truthful language. Like if I said this tall policeman or this fat policeman, I said this ugly policeman. But I said all that to show that there is a specific law about using insulting language to the police. And one of the reasons is, of course, the police is out there in the mainstream. He's the person who has to interact with the public. The judge will deal with you coming to his court. You can't tell the judge the ugly judge inside his court. Because they may deal with you for contempt. But the police is out there. You don't want to make the policeman's job more difficult than it really is. Yes, last question before we move on, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. I just stopped in based on the last question I heard. What about when it's in the reverse? When the officer of the law carries the citizen, to which right now I have a case before the police company.
Don't let's go through the personal case at this stage. Let's deal with it general.
Well,
If an officer curses a citizen, the citizen has the right to do two things. You can go to the office of something responsibility, the police headquarters, or there's a place called the Police Complaints Authority, which is in Wildy, and you can make out a statement at the Police Complaints Authority. And they will investigate the case and decide if they come to the conclusion that the policeman was wrong. A policeman is not entitled to abuse a member of the public.
So is there any type of punishment for that person after the complaint?
Yes, the commissioner has various powers that he can do.
Because I found when I look at justice, used to be look at justice. Justice is very cold. And if you don't have a cold heart for justice, you can execute it. Because if a lawmaker or lawkeeper breaks the law, and we are the citizens, we break the law, they come after us. So who goes after them when they break the said law?
I'll just repeat before we move on. You may report such a case to the Police Complaints Authority. The Police Complaints Authority has the matter investigated, and if the officer is found to be guilty, the commissioner can take certain action against him. And I do know a little bit about the Police Complaints Authority.
I'm familiar with this because I don't want to go any further.
Thank you. All right. Now, another freedom that we speak about is freedom of conscience. Freedom of conscience. All that means is that you are free to believe anything you want to believe. If you want to believe that you're God, that's your business. If you want to believe you can fly, that's your business. There's no one in Barbados who can stop you from believing whatever you want to believe. You can believe in any God you want to believe in, or no God for that matter. As a matter of fact, it goes so far that if a person is a member of an institution, an educational institution, you cannot force a person to go to prayers to a God he does not believe in. Therefore, if you're a Rastafarian and you don't believe in Roman Catholic doctrine, you cannot make that person go, because he goes to a Roman Catholic school, go and take part in the prayers. That is your freedom under the Constitution to believe whatever you want to believe and act on your belief, and believe nothing if you want to believe nothing. Again, no one can force you to take part in any kind of religious observance. That is your right under the Constitution. Your religion is something between you and your God, and if you don't have any God, to you. It has nothing to do with the state. Again, if you go to court, no judge or magistrate can make you take an oath on any religious book that you don't believe in. If you're a Muslim, there's no point putting a Bible in your hand and say, hold it up and say, sir, you cannot do it. You can bring a Quran if you have one, and if you don't have any, instead of swearing, you would affirm. All that means is that you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and live with the truth. But you cannot be forced to swear on a book that you do not believe in. Now, back to my same old story. All freedoms and all rights of the Constitution must have some kind of restrictions. There must be some circumstances under which that freedom must be curtailed. You have freedom of expression. You can say whatever you want to say, provided you do not break any law, because they just told you that if you curse the policeman, that's what you want to say, but you broke the law. So you can say whatever you want to say, provided you do not break any law, and very, very important, provided you do not defame another person. And when I speak about defaming, we used to talk about libel and slander. That's what we talk about, not the law of defamation. Your right to freedom of speech ends where the assassination of my good character begins. So, you hear people on the calling programs, you know, I don't listen to it, but I understand some of the things I hear people say, that everybody can run Barbados. Everybody knows the best thing for the country. Everybody knows who is bad and who is good. And that's their right. That is one of the strong rights we have. We have the freedom of expression, that we can express ourselves as we like. But suppose in expressing themselves, they call some man or woman's name and says, he was the biggest thief in Barbados. Now they're looking for trouble. They're going to spend a piece of change now. Because the freedom of expression does not permit you to defame somebody else. So you were doing very well with your freedom of expression when you said they don't like so-and-so, they can't do this, they can do that. But that freedom ends where the person's character begins. You cannot defame a person and then say, it's my constitutional right to say what I want to say, provided you do not defame any person when you do that. I saw somebody who would ask a question just before you go. All right, we press on. So one of the things when we speak about freedom of expression, we tend to refer chiefly to the press. It's one of the things that the press holds dearly. If you don't have a free press, it means that you live in a kind of dictatorship, because everybody cannot know what is going on. It is the press that helps us to know what is going on. And that is why the press has such an important duty, because the press must report honestly upon what is happening, but it must not be muzzled. It must not allow any kind of influence to prevent it from using that power which the Constitution gives it, the power of freedom of expression. As I mentioned to the last group of persons I spoke to, anytime you see a dictator takes over a country, there's nothing called a free press in a dictatorship. It just can't work. You can't be a dictator and let people get up there and curse if they want to curse you. Don't you see in Barbados that you start to curse the politicians, they curse for how they look, how they speak, how they dress, all kinds of things, relevant and irrelevant, foolish and sensible. But once you do not defame them, that is your right. Sometimes you carry that right even too far. But those who are a little older than some of the young ones I see here would remember when Bishop took over the government in Grenada. Everything called free press would have died with that takeover, because in a dictatorship, the only thing that can go out is what the powers that be wish to go out. This is nothing called freedom of expression. So we must be thankful for our rights under the Constitution to express ourselves freely and don't have to worry about what anybody has to say. Similarly, we have the freedom to assemble. We have the freedom to assemble and to associate with others. What do you think of right away when you hear about this freedom to associate and freedom to assemble? What comes to your mind when you speak freedom of association and freedom of assembly? Political parties and trade unions. Yeah. In Barbados, we have a right to join any political party we want to join. We have a right to join any trade union we wish to join. We also have another right, not to join any. You're not. So no one can make you associate with whom you don't want to associate with. Neither can anyone prevent you from associating with whom you want to associate with. And those are important freedoms. Freedom to join political parties and take part in government, or freedom to join trade unions and to come together to fight for your industrial rights. That is protected under the Constitution. Now,
Do we have closed shops in Barbados?
if we have,
Closed shops?
no. For those who don't understand what a closed shop is, there are some places where, let us say the port. In some places, if you want to work in the port, you have to join the union, because only union members. I said in some places, I want to repeat, it's not saying Barbados. You have, all a closed shop means is you cannot work in this place unless you join the union. And that sometimes can affect more than one freedom, because some persons, for religious reasons, object to trade unions. A person may say, my religion does not allow me to join a trade union. But what they have to do is join, and their dues could possibly go to some charity or something, but you must be a member of the organization to work in particular places. That is what you call a closed shop. It does not exist in Barbados. Now again, as I said, there must be some freedoms on assembly and association with others. For example, in the interest of public safety or defense, that you can be required not to associate at a particular time. It doesn't happen every day, but if it becomes necessary. The worst part is, when I say the worst part, is to say the most severe part is that if things get bad enough, that you can have a state of emergency. And if a state of emergency is declared, that many of our rights are restricted. That is why you do not call a state of emergency stipulate that. It takes a lot of thought And it takes a lot of provocation and whatnot for there to be a state of emergency because it restricts the right. And you have we don't have enough time to go through that. That could be a lecture itself. But you have to go through certain processes to have a state of emergency, the duration of the state, and those kinds of things. It is not something that any politician gets up overnight and says state of emergency. But I only draw to your attention to show that there is that right to restrict our freedom of association and our freedom of assembly in the public interest, public health, public morality. Those are some of the grounds on which those freedoms can be restricted. Again, we have in our country freedom of movement. You can go from any part of the body, nobody can tell you to not go to St. Lucie. But I went there last week and nobody stopped me and asked me to show the pass why you live St. Michael coming to St. Lucie. Not even in St. Philip they can't stop me. But the point I'm making is that we have freedom to travel throughout Barbados. We have freedom to come into Barbados when we want to come into Barbados. You can't stop us from coming in here. This is our country. Yes, sir.
So, should we not therefore have a much easier access to the airport than back in?
To the airport?
Should we not therefore have a much easier access to the airport back in? Because we can't be stopped.
But but you see, again, I did not say you can't be stopped. You cannot be prevented from entering, having gone through the correct formalities.
All right.
I wanted that passport you're coming here with. I wanted, how come that you come here and go out? Or, how do I know you're Barbadian at all? So, we do have to go through formalities. Freedom isn't always free. But thank God we have the broad freedoms. And sometimes we have to put up with little complications that attach to the exercise of these freedoms. Sometimes it is necessary for us to have little problems in exercising our freedoms so that others may exercise their freedom. Because if we are free to do as we like, and we don't have to care about anybody else, it means that the strong will kill the weak. Yeah. All right. You know what I'm supposed to be doing in 1 hour is what you do in a semester. But we're just touching the main points. We hear about discrimination. That's another thing we hear about from time to time. Anybody thinks there's discrimination in Barbados? You think we have discrimination in Barbados? I didn't see the person, but I heard a loud yes. Yeah. So what would you say discrimination is? When you speak of discrimination, what do you really mean? Not in a law or legal form. I mean,
Some people want really treat.
giving different treatment to different people, right? Pow, pow, pow. In Barbados, the Constitution provides that there is to be no discrimination on the grounds of race, place of origin, political opinions, color or creed, and if I put a little bit more formal language on what we just said, it's the same thing, and that is a case where persons of one description are subjected to disabilities or restrictions to which persons of another description are not made subject, or according privileges which a person of a different description are not afforded. That's what discrimination is, just as the lady said. But the Constitution tells us that we cannot, in law, under the Constitution, be discriminated against on grounds of race, place of origin, whether you're born in Timbuktu, Nazareth, or where, political opinion, color, creed, etc. Now, there's an interesting point, though. Some of these constitutional rights can only be enforced against a state. So if I want to discriminate against a person, nobody can put me in court to discriminate against them. Although the Constitution says that Barbadians are not subject to discrimination, should not be subject to discrimination It means that that is basically the philosophy of the society in which you live. And the government cannot do it. The government cannot lawfully discriminate. But suppose, for example, that you are brown skinned and you want to hold a party tonight, and when you get there, you say, no black people come in my party. But I can't go call the police to you, or I can't put you in court. That is, you can do that. That's a private matter between citizen and citizen, because that freedom against discrimination cannot be enforced against a private citizen. It can only be enforced against the state. Similarly, you can't discriminate against a person on the grounds of his religion. I'll tell you something, that we have all this right to freedom of association, and which means that you can join trade unions, etc., etc. But in spite of that constitutional freedom to join trade unions, if a person is dismissed from his job for joining a trade union, he cannot have a constitutional, the employer cannot have a constitutional action brought against him. I can think of a case where, and I want you to listen very carefully because I don't want to be misquoted and misunderstood on this. I know a case, and you know it very, very well, where an employer dismissed workers for joining a trade union. And he said, I'm going to court, and said, yes, I dismissed him for joining the union. When it went to court, the judge found that they were dismissed because they joined a union. But he could not do anything under the Constitution because saying your constitutional rights were infringed. It doesn't mean that he could go scot-free. They would succeed in a wrongful dismissal case. A wrongful dismissal case. But they would get no more compensation than if they were dismissed for coming to work late twice or three times. It would be the same type of compensation that they would get, because a wrongful dismissal was a wrongful dismissal. Since the Employment Rights Act, this new labor act that came in, that if a person is dismissed, a person is employed, if he's dismissed for joining a trade union or for becoming a shop steward, the Employment Rights Tribunal can order for him to be reinstated. They can order for him, all that means is give back his job. But did I not tell you there's something in the Constitution that says you cannot force a person to associate who don't want to associate with? So if you say to reinstate me, I said, I don't want to work with you. So you cannot force me. But it doesn't mean that the law is empty. What the law goes on to provide for is that if you don't reinstate the person, you don't go to prison or anything like that, but you have to pay him more money than if you had carried out the orders. There's an extra money you have to pay for not reinstating him. That is by the way. You just got a little free knowledge. All right. Yes, please.
With respect to discrimination, you said it can only be brought against the state.
Yeah.
Now, we've got personnel who work for the state. And when the citizen looks on and see that officers or members working for the state are discriminating because of the color, for example, where we've got a person who's charged for murder, a black person is charged for murder and he's handcuffed, and a white person who's charged for murder and he's walking free. That, in my opinion, is discrimination. What reports have citizens got, when they see things like that happening?
First of all, they don't know about the facts you're talking about. I know. I'm just saying, I don't know about those facts. But if you're an onlooker, and you see a black man handcuffed and a white man not handcuffed, and you go to the same court. In law, what does it have to do with you? Nothing. That has nothing to do with you. because you are not a party to any of these things. You get the point I'm making? In other words, every citizen just can't go and say, I'm going to do something because you're all discriminating against people. You would not have suffered any discrimination against you. You look as though you're not following me.
I'm following you, but I'm thinking now.
That if you're the prisoner?
I'm thinking in terms of the Administrative Justice Act, where, persons or where, the things are done. You have acts of omission and.
No, I understand what you're saying, but all I'm saying is you can't let in law you call every officious bystander, and you that expression don't mean what we call gypsy people. That's it. that has nothing to do with you directly. In other words, we see a lot of things that we don't like, but we can't do anything about it because we are not a party to it. Suppose, for example, you go down the road now, you see a man beat his wife and pelt out through the house. You can call him all kind of animal. You can do anything, but you can't bring a case against the man. We trouble you. Who has to do it? But back to your thing. As I said, I don't know of any case of any black people handcuffed or white people handcuffed. I know nothing of it. But you're going to get something that might get close to that later on. But even then, the argument may be every case is taken on its merits. And the argument may be there's some particular reason why that man who happened to be white was not handcuffed, and why that man who happened to be black was handcuffed. But I don't know who. I think most people get handcuffed from what I see. I don't know. Oh no, they say that was just out of the blue. All right. So that is so much about discrimination. But you know that sometimes that there is some kind of discrimination that takes place. I think a lot of you have got some pretty letters here during the course of last week before. Some beautiful letters from Bra, land tax. Some people paid $4,000, and some people pay $400, and some people pay none. Isn't that a form of discrimination? You are discriminating against those who have big houses or who live in certain areas, but that is not unlawful because there's provision that that is the kind of discrimination that you can have. It is discrimination. You can have discrimination on the imposition of taxes or appropriation of revenue by the government or any governmental authority. So again, back to the same old story. Every one of the constitutional provisions must have some exceptions and some little sideshows, so to speak. And of course, that all of these limitations are also enforced in the interest of the public, in the public interest. I'm just looking to see how fast we're going now, what it's been about. All right, these same constitutional matters that we're speaking about. If there's an infringement against the Constitution, and you can go to some other court and there's some other remedy, you don't just bring a constitutional action. You only bring a constitutional action if there is no other remedy that is available to you. So you don't just rush the court, I want a constitutional action, I want a constitutional action. If the court provides for some other remedy, that remedy must be exhausted before you rush into a constitutional action. And as I told you earlier, constitutional matters are brought against the state. There's something called the state action doctrine, where constitutional matters are brought against the state and not against individuals. So you will not get any remedy on a constitutional matter unless there is no other remedy in another court. You must use up other remedies before you get into constitutional matters. We'll take a break here for any questions. What's the time? What's the time? 2 grams per hour, sorry.